Hello, everyone. My name is Carlos Corral. I'm the artistic director for the El Paso Film Festival, and we want to welcome you to another digital panel that we are hosting this year. Welcome to the Film Festival Strategy Panel. As you know, this is our first year actually holding panels, and while I really wanted to meet all of you in person, well, I know Isaac and Ximena on this panel, but Gene, I haven't seen you in forever, and Chad, you're a brand new addition to this, so I really wish we could have done this in person, but I want you guys to introduce yourselves and tell us which festival you're associated with and just a little bit about yourself. So, Gene, go ahead and take it away.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here. My name is Jean Lauer. I have been working in film festivals for a while. And I started out in support for films in production. And then I moved into programming about 12 years ago now. And I've been with Cine Las Americas in Austin. We specialize in Latinx and Indigenous films from the Americas. And then for the past 2 years, I've also been a shorts film programmer with Fantastic Fest, also based in Austin. And it's a genre film festival. And I'm a professor full time and work in film festivals as my kind of passion project.
Awesome. And it's always great to see you again. And for everyone wondering at home, Gene Lauer was actually my RTF 317 professor while I was at UT Austin. So it's great to always maintain those kind of relationships, especially from our instructors.
Absolutely.
Chad, how about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing in Fort Worth.
Sure. Yeah, so Chad Matthews, I'm the executive director of the Lone Star Film Society, which is the organization that puts on the Lone Star Film Festival here in Fort Worth. I've been working with the organization for about 6 years. My background is as a filmmaker, and I kind of fell into the film festival world when I was living in Los Angeles. I started a film festival in the Texas Hill Country in Fredericksburg called the Hill Country Film Festival. So that was a little over a decade ago. And that experience led me to the job here in Fort Worth. I still do work with Hill Country. That's a passion project of mine. But Lone Star is kind of the day job. And they're very different festivals. Lone Star is splashier, it's bigger, it has more of a donor base, and it presents more content. And Hill Country is a little bit smaller, more intimate experience. That's kind of a destination film festival. So both have been really fun to program for and to work in all capacities of festival operations.
Great, yeah, and of course, I always love intimate film festivals, and I hope to catch Hill Country sometime soon in the future.
It's a lot of fun. I hope we back to that place where we can, go back to Fredericksburg and watch movies together.
For sure. And Ximena, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Hey, y'all. So my name is Ximena Alvarez, and like Jean and Carlos, I went to the University of Texas at Austin. I graduated last year with a degree in theater. And I am associated with the El Paso Film Festival. I'm a film programmer along with Isaac. I had met Carlos through a project, and through the grapevine, we got into working on the film festival together. My background is mostly in theater, but I also have been working through the RTF program and through independent films a long-ish time. But yeah, it's been a pleasure and it's been a great experience.
Of course, great. And actually, yeah, we did meet on a film production, so it was great to hear how Ximena wanted to get involved. So I'm like, hey, I think I have the perfect job for you.
Exactly, yeah.
And then, of course, next we have Isaac, who I've also known for several years. Isaac, tell us a little bit about your journey.
My name is Isaac Marquez. I started in film production when I was 18 years old. Through the grapevine, as we've said, I met Mr. Carlos, and I moved over to Austin, Texas to work in independent film. I was on various sets, and I interned for Austin Film Festival in the screenplay department, and then I interned for a year at Austin Film Society in the film programming department. So I spent a lot of time kind of analyzing and working in film. And it's just a big passion of mine. I enjoy it very much. And thankfully, when I came back to El Paso, there was a place for me with the El Paso Film Festival because I love the community. So
Yeah, and of course, I was really happy when you told me you moved back home, and again, I know, Isaac, you've been writing. I've read several of your shorts and features, and again, it was one of those. I think Isaac would be a great programmer here, so welcome aboard.
thank you.
And so I'm just going to go ahead. The chat is open, everyone, in case you all want to submit any questions to us. But I'll go ahead and start the topic off. So, Gene, we'll start with you, and then we'll work our way around to everybody. So here's the big $1 million question. What is the secret to getting selected for a film festival?
It's complicated, and it's not complicated. So like the simple solution is make a really good film and know your audience, right? So I have programmed for 2 very different film festivals. And so I've seen kind of behind the scenes of both of those. And like Chad was saying, like there's festivals that are bigger and splashier and have certain types of profiles. And there are festivals that are more community based. Less people come from outside, but lots of people still see movies. They just tend to be more from the community. And so Cine Las Americas it's a niche film festival, right? So to get selected for that festival, you have to meet certain very specific criteria to start with. And so whenever you're looking at your film, I always tell people, like, first, and this is with all respect to people who make films, like, make sure it's a good film. You really like, you can practice on films and make not great films. Like, that's part of art, right? But when you have that film that you're sure is ready to meet an audience, know where it's going. So if you are a filmmaker that comes from, for example, Latinx or Indigenous background, you might look for outlets that specialize in that when you're getting started. You might not. It depends a lot on what you want to do and what you think you have. But there's also, right, like Fantastic Fest, which is a genre film festival. So you have to know before you send your film what kind of festival you're sending it to. If your film's not a genre film, please don't send it to Fantastic Fest. If you don't really meet the criterion, right? But then beyond that, every film festival and its programmers have their tastes, right? So you want to get to know the festival, not just from like what it says on the page, but also take a look at what they've programmed. Attend film festivals, get to know what festivals do, get to know who the people are that put on the program of a festival. And really, I hate to say it's like part amazing film and part luck, but sometimes it's having the film at the right place at the right time, right? Like that's really the key to it. The right person has to see it, has to champion it, and it has to fit in the program. I'm going to say this again with all respect. A lot of amazing films do not get programmed.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. And it's actually interesting you mentioned that. I actually had a filmmaker who submitted a documentary last year to our festival. I thought it was really good, but for the sake of programming and time, I wasn't able to get it in. But this year, the documentary became so much more relevant that I emailed him and said, "Hey, submit the film again. And I want to make sure that it does get played this time." So that's the other thing too, as festival programmers, just to all you filmmakers out there, we do remember your work because a lot of it does make an impression on us. But again, sometimes festivals are limited to how many times we can use the theater, screening times, how long our festival is. So we try to program what we can. So with that, Chad, I wanted to kind of move on to you since, you, like Gene, also program. I believe you program for 2 festivals, Hill Country and Lone Star. And since you mentioned that Hill Country is a little bit more intimate, is there a programming difference? Is there niche? Is there genre? What is it like for you?
Like what Gene was saying, know your festival, what you're targeting at. the difference between, say, Lone Star and Hill Country would be that Lone Star gets over 1,000 submissions, Hill Country gets under 500 submissions. So you've got to look at your festival, history. Like, if I was a filmmaker wanting to submit to one of those two festivals, I would look at, their content, the history of what they're programming, and just get a better insight as to what they're looking for. What do they want? Lone Star might be really heavy on foreign films. Well, I'm a small American film. Maybe I don't necessarily want to submit to Lone Star. Hill Country plays a lot of Texas films. I made a film in Texas. Maybe that will work a little bit better. There's no real formula to it. And honestly, it starts with making a really great movie. And then, again, like Gene was saying, there's a little bit of luck there. And it is really kind of the right film at the right time for the festival in this season. It's funny how you can program a film that's absolutely perfect for Hill Country in 2019, but it wouldn't work in 2020, or it would work for Hill Country and Lone Star, but not Lone Star and Hill. It's just, there's no real definitive way of figuring it out. And you've just got to try your best to navigate the thousands of film festivals that are available to you and make the right choices. I always tell filmmakers, you definitely want to go for the big festivals with a slight touch, right? You want to say, yes, I want to try for South by Southwest. I want to try for Sundance. What happens when you don't get into those? Think about those secondary markets you have a really good opportunity to screen at festivals that are not as big as those monster fests. You can have a great festival run at smaller, more niche film festivals, and I think it could give your film a huge life. So it's just trial and error, honestly.
Yeah, and it's great that you mentioned that, Chad, because the way when I always talk to filmmakers, I always tell them, think of it as a tiered system, and again, what I'm about to say, this is no disrespect, but like, tier one festivals are your big ones, your Sundance, your South bys, your Venice, your Toronto, like anything that is worldwide known is usually tier one. And then tier twos are the ones that are just as big. They're still Academy Award qualifying, but they're more, centered in a region. So for that, that's like Atlanta Film Festival or Chicago or even Austin Film Festival. So those are still very high festivals. And then I can tell you guys, for us, El Paso Film Festival, since we're still kind of new, this is barely our third year, we're more of a tier three, we're still growing, we're still getting there. And usually what I tell filmmakers is that usually when festivals are growing and they're in their second or third year, they're still, they're not getting thousands and thousands of submissions. So you have a very high shot of getting in. So just always kind of remember that. But again, if you get rejected from those festivals, don't take it as a bad thing. It's one of those, you try again, you fail again, and you fail better. But eventually your film will find a home. In fact, it'll find several homes, because the other thing that we do at El Paso Film Festival is that we also do take notice of where your film has gone. So if we see like, oh, hey, they played at Dallas International, or hey, they played at Hill Country. Cool. I know the programmer there. Let me call him and ask him about these movies. So that's also kind of the other thing too, is that festivals also do talk to each other. So when we do see something that's great, and, we might think, I'd be like, hey, Gene, I saw this great movie. I think it'd be perfect for Cine Las Americas. Let me put you in touch with the filmmaker. So that's to let you filmmakers know out there that, we all still maintain relationships with other festivals. Does that, so actually, let me segue that to to a question. So Gene, how do you maintain those relationships with filmmakers and also other festivals? Like I'm sure the relationships are different between Fantastic Fest and Cine Las Americas.
Right. So I can't speak for the feature film team at Fantastic Fest, but they do have a very typical relationship with studios, like the major studios and distributors, all the way down to filmmakers at that high tier level. With shorts, it's a little more independent and DIY, and I actually really love being in shorts for that reason. But even so, like as Carlos was saying, like I keep an eye on other shorts programs. The co-programmer with me, Peter Kaplowski, who also works for Toronto International, like we keep an eye on short programs all through the years. We maintain our contacts with other programmers. And Cine Las Americas is the same for our entire lineup. We might travel. I currently actually, I am programming advisor now at Cine Las Americas, and the program team is based. We have a program team member in Toronto, we have a program team member in Phoenix, we have a program team member in Mexico, and then we have contacts throughout the entire Americas to keep our eye on what films are coming up. And then, film festivals get to know filmmakers. Hopefully, if you get to know a filmmaker early in their career and they have a good experience at the festival, which is what we hope to offer every filmmaker, right? Then we also maintain that connection, and that becomes another way to know what's going on and keep those ties going. So network. I can't emphasize that enough either. I know now's a little weird, but you have to show up. It really is. There's so much personal connection to this industry.
Yeah, and it's great that you mentioned that, Gene, because Isaac, I'm going to use you as kind of an example. So what a lot of people don't know about our programmer, Isaac, he actually started off, we had this, before El Paso Film Festival, I worked for the Plaza Classic Film Festival, and we had this segment called The Good, the Bad, and the Indie, where we would just show films that were both good, they were bad, and they were just plain old indies. And Isaac submitted his first short film there. And it was interesting. I'll tell him that. But what was great is that he came, he showed up, and then he saw all the other films and was like, whoa, I want to get to that level. And he started to network with me and a lot of all of other filmmakers that were there. So then the following year, he actually made another short film called La Loteria. So it's a short little, 2-3 minute short, and it's fantastic. I love it. It's actually available on our channel if you guys want to stream it. But Isaac, kind of go into that story, a little bit of details, and just tell us how just networking changed your trajectory as a filmmaker.
Well, as a very young person at the time, I was a bundle of nerves, just artistically, but also personally. So I was very thankful that when I kind of arrived, that everybody was so warm. Generally people are very nice to them, or nice to you if you bring the same warmth and energy. And luckily, the arts community here in El Paso and other arts communities I've been a part of is in Austin. They're very welcoming, and a lot of people are willing to help you out. You just have to ask. That's the only thing, is asking. Be willing to ask. It feels a little silly, but that's the way you would find your way. I mean, everything that I was able to do was simply because of that reason. Yeah,
and Samantha, to answer your question on the chat here, a lot of the times it's just setting up a relationship. And I know right now, due to COVID, it can be a little impersonal, but there's nothing wrong with just sending an email. You never know who's going to answer back, so don't feel intimidated to try to contact, festival programmers and just talk to them. They may not get back to you during the busy season when they're programming and getting things ready, but off season, usually they're pretty available. And Ximena, I don't want to leave you out of the conversation at all. So
no, I mean, I was just about to say, I was reminiscing on how we had our first contact, actually. I remember going through the Texas Film Commission, and me being a recent transplant to El Paso, I was like, I need to know who's here. I had no idea. My only contacts were in Austin, and they gave me, some names, but essentially the directory is my best friend. And that's where I found Carlos's email. And right away, he was very welcoming and explained everything, at least in terms of the El Paso industry, and gave me a lot of foresight as to what exactly I was getting myself into by moving here. So I think more than anything, it's getting over the fear that you'll be rejected, because more than anything, our industry is very welcoming. So I think just shoot your shot. That's your best plan.
Yeah, and again, to all you filmmakers out there, just because you submit one film and it doesn't get in, doesn't mean we don't remember you. You might think, but there's thousands and thousands of films. I'm like, yeah, that's true, but when we see you also grow as a filmmaker, it's like, oh, hey, this person sent us this film last year, but now they're sending us this one this year. Hey, let's check this out. They're a consistent filmmaker. That's always a good thing to to see. But yeah, that's how Ximena became involved with the El Paso Film Festival. She just sent an email, and I said, "Sure, you sound great. Let's meet and see what I can help you with." So really, a lot of it is just that connection, and yeah, I know some festival programmers are different, but we're always open to email, and we always try to answer as many questions as we can. Of course, if you send us your movie and ask us for a waiver code, that's a whole different story, which we'll get into a little bit later. But yeah, I kind of wanted to go back to Chad real quick. So with Hill Country and with Lone Star, and then Gene, we'll go to you as well. Since the pandemic hit and we've all been pivoting, a lot of things have come up with festivals, regarding premiere status. Should we participate with festivals? Are the systems that they have in place even a good way to get our film seen? Because one of the things that I know festivals are struggling with is that we try to show films in a movie theater, and now that's kind of been thrown out the ways. So I'm curious how Lone Star and Hill Country have adapted to this change, and whatever you guys did, and how you've been able to still convince filmmakers to screen their work with you.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a process that we're still going through. I mean, both festivals opened their call for entries with the, earlier in the year, with the idea that we're going to have an in-person event, and then the pandemic hit, and Hill Country, we had less than a month to inform all of our filmmakers that we're forced to go virtual, and we gave them the option, like, if you are not comfortable with this, we have there are no harms if you needed to pull your film out. And a number of filmmakers did do that. I mean, it was not significant, but for features, it was pretty sharp. So Lone Star is doing the same thing. And what I've noticed over the past 6 or 7 months is that most filmmakers are sticking in now to virtual. So that means that all of the 22 feature films that we accepted, they are all going to play through an online screening through Lone Star, which is showing that people are a little bit more comfortable with this system. And I think we're all kind of realizing that we're kind of in this for a little bit, I mean, and that was just hard to, it was hard to change and comprehend when this whole thing started, because, in March you thought, well, we'll be clear and everything will be back to normal in July. And then July rolls by in August, and you're just like, whoa, I mean, what are we going to do? And I don't know. As a festival, it's really important that we get back to the in-person event. I don't know how many years we can go virtually without it just completely killing really both festivals that I work for, because it's the heart and soul of a film festival is that in-person interaction where you're getting to hang out with the filmmakers afterwards, and you're seeing, I mean, it's so much more impactful when you're in this auditorium. It's this, black space with this huge screen, and it just takes over, right? And we're missing that right now. But I think filmmakers they're adapting to it. We're going to, continue in this virtual world until we can, make those baby steps into going back into theaters. And, I wish I had more concrete, hey, this is how it is. This is what we're going. This is what we're going to do. But I just don't, I mean, we're all trying to figure it out. And the real question, though, is when we open up submissions for 21, how are you planning for that year? Like, what is the verbiage? What are we going to say about, are we already planning in our heads that 2021 is going to be a virtual year already? Or are we going to say it's going to be a hybrid year? It could be, a possibility of both. Or do we say, now we're going to do in-person events? And that's a question that's going to be asked very soon for Lone Star when we open up in January. And it's a question that Hill Country, since we opened up submissions this year for 21, we're already very concerned about, because with Sundance and South by going digital, Hill Country taking place a month after South by, there's a good chance it will be a second year that will be completely a virtual film festival. And at that point, you really have to think, do we keep going? Because the majority of the sell for Hill Country is Fredericksburg. It's going to Fredericksburg, being a part of the city, enjoying movies, enjoying the ambiance of the region. And if we can't get people out there, the festival doesn't have a strong enough name to just, people are going to be able to say, hey, I'm going to buy a $50 pass to go watch movies at Hill Country. It just doesn't have that marquee name like Toronto or Sundance or other festivals. So, we're hoping, we're just trying to see what happens. And we always look at other film festivals and what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong. And you hope, well, if El Paso is doing something really right, then we need to take their lead, and try to run with it too, and see if we can help that in another part of Texas. And so, it's just watching and seeing what everyone's doing.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's also how we developed our strategy for, having the festival on our Roku, Apple, and Fire TV platforms. Because what we were noticing, and again, I don't blame for festivals that had to do this, because a lot of them had to pivot so quickly, but a lot of it you could only experience on your computer or a laptop. And I kind of felt like, I like to at least sit on the couch, or sit in bed in my bedroom and watch movies. But I kind of want to go to you, Gene, because I know you ran into this with Cine Las Americas. You guys pushed a little bit, but then you did digital streaming in, I believe it was in June, correct, or July?
July.
Yeah, it was in July. And then Fantastic Fest just said, we'll come back next year. So I'm actually curious.
No, we had a full, no, we did not have a full Fantastic Fest. But we did have Fantastic Fest during its scheduled dates. We called it a celebration of Fantastic Fest.
Okay, yeah, you had Celebration of Fantastic Fest. Yeah. But originally, I guess just kind of tell me a little bit about how, what was the experience like with both of those festivals? Was Cine Las one way and Fantastic Fest was another?
It was. Can I talk about one thing about diversity and selection, though, real quick?
Sure.
Okay. So earlier when I was talking about film selection and how some of it is luck, you don't know what other films are being submitted that year. And every festival is trying to fill program slots. They have a certain number of features, a certain number of shorts, a certain number of music videos, for example. And they each have their own criteria for how they fill, like, we need comedies and dramas and these types of things. We want to make sure we have a balance, right? So even if we're not talking about diversity in a traditional sense, right, like regional diversity or other types of diversity, there's always a selection process that winnows down. And when you have two great films and they're about the same thing, you only pick one because you have one slot and you need to give another slot to something else. So I just want to also let filmmakers know this, right? Like, the selection process is incredibly challenging. We agonize over it tremendously, and the decision is never easy. We're always very excited and proud of it, but it's never easy.
Yeah, I know. And Isaac and Ximena, I can get you both on this, because the three of us, watching all the movies, giving them grades and comments and that kind of thing, and just saying, okay.
And there's a team, right?
Yeah.
It's not like a decider.
Yeah, there's not one decider.
Had.
Yeah, well, and it wasn't like arguments, but what was great is that, I would see what Isaac or Ximena would say, and I was like, wow, I really liked that movie, and they hated it. Or this movie, they really loved it, and I didn't like it at all. Okay, let's powwow and figure this out. So Ximena, if you want to start, just kind of tell everyone what the experience, the selection experience was like in working with a programming team.
Well, the experience was definitely, it was fun for sure. But there was also times where I felt like it felt like debate class, because I was saying essentially, like, this is amazing, this needs to be showcased, and my two other film programmers didn't think so. So it was very much the type of thing where it's like not necessarily so much compromising, but really listening to all the perspective and seeing why essentially something shouldn't be shown that year. Like you said, Gene, it's the type of thing where it's like, well, it's very similar to something that we already have. And in terms of something that, if it's going to go to one or the other, you're going to give the one that more people agree on, even though perhaps it's still a very good short or feature. So with that, I mean, we would get together through Zoom, of course, and basically debate it out, trying to see, okay, at least in terms of this category, why did we rate it this much? Or why did we write this comment? And then based off of that, kind of just deciding which ones moved forward and which ones stayed behind. And also, Chad, not to sound, Martin Scorsese here, but like it is a little bit hard to not want to do something in person with something that, is as exciting as a film festival. I mean, I know, Carlos, we discussed like the potential of maybe even like a drive-in event, but even then, like it's difficult because you want to give that same experience.
Yeah.
And
it's why we signed up for it, right? I mean, it's why we became films. You want to have that experience. I will say this about programming. When filmmakers ask me, like, they're trying to get into, how are you doing this? What's the process like? I would always recommend a filmmaker, especially if they're, fresh out of school, is volunteer with a film festival and
absolutely get in the office,
see the content and see the mistakes. You'll learn real quick as a filmmaker what works and what doesn't work, and you'll be like, oh, I get it. I should not have done that on my first film.
Right. Yeah. Seeing it from like the back perspective, like I didn't even notice that was something that, like, as a programmer, you notice that. You notice those little mistakes, those little hiccups. Not that, filmmaking, of course, you're going to run into problems in every single project, but it's very apparent the things that you don't notice, at least seeing it from outside of your own view.
Yeah, and
Isaac, can you agree?
Yeah, that's where Isaac comes in, because there were a lot of films where I was like, I don't know about this, and even you too, Ximena, we were like, we don't know, and somehow Isaac was able to convince us on a couple of them.
Well,
it's very good.
To me, what's very, and we all would agree with this, a film festival that was just purely programmed by one person or one mind, it does a disservice to all filmmakers and a disservice to the art itself. It's a matter of diversifying the culture, the narrative, the everything. It's about really sticking for what you believe in as a filmmaker, but also as a programmer, and just throwing it out there and trying your best. To me personally, my tastes are very eclectic, as we've probably found out implicitly. So when I see a film that was really out there, it brought some new ideas, or what I always look for is something that really, I've never seen anything like it. A lot of the shorts that we got were incredible in this way. And so for me, that's I feel like it's my duty almost to fight for something like that, something that's so out there, so out the box that maybe somewhere else it doesn't make any sense or whatever it is. I think that's sort of the most important thing is, again, trying. If you're a filmmaker who does the most insane thing, whatever, don't be discouraged. Don't feel like film festivals aren't an avenue for you, because I guarantee it, there's going to be a weirdo like me who tells his programming team, who are, very open to ideas, hey, you know what? I really want to fight for this one. And I think this one's worth showing to an audience online or in person.
Yeah, and jumping off to that point, I'm actually going to answer one question.
Did you want me to go back to the virtual fest at Cine?
Oh, no. Yeah.
Something else. Okay.
No, yeah, I'll go back to that one. But to touch on Isaac's point, I'm going to answer Julian Nunez's question. So actually, he was asking, do programmers also check out the film's marketing, social media, websites when we watch it? Well, I always try to compare it to where it's like your film is the main dish, and then anything else is the nice dressing on top of it. Whatever you can do to make your film look very beautiful to us is always a plus. You don't have to always do that, but it does make things a little difficult for us, especially if you just submit something and there's no description or synopsis. We're like, what is this? And we're like, okay, well, we'll check it out and then go from there. So sometimes we do use that marketing material to at least get to know who the filmmaker is, what the movie's about, where it's been, just to kind of give us a sense of an idea of like, okay, this is where we're about to watch and get into. So we have kind of an idea. So yes, it's always encouraged to have a little bit of marketing material with your entries. And yeah, so the other question here, and Gene, we'll go back to you, from also JD Martinez. What have been the challenges of just running the virtual festival this year? I know, like you said, Cine Las Americas did their streaming event, and I thought it was great. I loved it. I was able to watch it on my TV. But what were the challenges between planning that from your in-person festival in May and then getting that up and going right in July?
Yeah, I have to say that in both kind of the cases of Fantastic Fest and Cine Las Americas, we kind of officially canceled the festival because to those of us involved, we really think film festivals, we really want them to be in-person events, right? And no disrespect to any festival that's running anything. And of course, if someone called this year's Cine Las a film festival, that's fine. We didn't mark it as the 23rd annual because we were we want to be back in person when we do that. And also with our track record of that many years, right, there was just a passion to keep the continuity and the spirit of that. That said, we serve, and Fantastic Fest also serves, a wide variety of audience members who count on us, right, to find these films for them every year and share them with them, or filmmakers that really rely on Cine and film festivals like us to help get the word out about Latinx and Indigenous films and issues. So the program team, I haven't programmed at Cine. I didn't program this year. It was my first year not doing any programming at Cine. It was really sad, but I love the team. And they were just like, Gene, we watched all these amazing movies. We can't not do anything. And I was like, you're right. So tell me what we can do. And this was we canceled in March, when South by was falling apart and we realized we couldn't do anything. And then I was like, let's just put a pause. There's no rush. Let's figure out what we want to do and do it right. Right. And so we did a few features and a few shorts, and we decided to use the money we had saved from the in-person festival, and we were able to pay screening fees to every film that participated, except for the youth shorts, because, there's issues with money and people underage, but we paid most of the films a screening fee, and we had awards for all of them for each category as well. And I was very proud of the ability to be able to do that this year. It's always been my dream to pay a screening fee for everything because I believe in paying artists for their work. But so it's just not really feasible on most festival budgets to do that. So I'm not saying,
No, yeah, the way we did it for us, usually what we had done in the past is, our festival would offer a travel stipend. So we would bring the filmmaker out here, put them up in a hotel, and just kind of give them the VIP experience. And that was the way we would do it. Because, again, as you mentioned, it's all about the network and in person.
Right, and networking is so important, and you have to figure out how to make that work.
Yeah, and then so for this year, for screening fees, we were able to do it with all the features. But luckily the short films, all the filmmakers were very gracious in letting us do everything. And again, we were screening everything for free. So that was also the big thing is we're not making any money on this. This is straight up to just tell people stay home, stay safe, stay healthy, just watch some good indie films and don't go outside right now.
Yeah, both Cine Las Americas and Fantastic Fest. So there were a couple programs with Fantastic Fest for distributor and other deals that we did have a screening fee for, but otherwise everything was free and open to people who could register for it based on geo-blocking, which is a way that things have changed. For us, it meant in both cases, we could reach audiences outside of Austin, and it was amazing. And I'm going to say our first shorts program for Fantastic Fest, over 300 people were on the site and in the chat and talking with each other and watching the shorts and gushing. And we don't get that even with Fantastic Fest, right? There's a cap on the number of people who can go into an auditorium and see the shorts, and then they're never, most of them, seen again. So I will say, as hard as it was to do, and as much as I miss being, and Carlos, and I'm a hugger, so I'm missing seeing all my people and getting to say hi. And it's it's a reunion every year for both festivals, right? People come into town and you meet new people and there's a whole new gang. But that in-person part was missing. But there were ways, especially with Fantastic Fest, with their platform, where community were able to come together. With Cine, there was some of that too, but it was, again, a little different experience. But yeah, so Fantastic Fest ran the same weekend. We called it a celebration of Fantastic Fest, and we had a really great time. And yet we were all like, can't wait to see your face, like in person, hopefully next year. But for shorts, for features, it was really good too, in that the ones that decided to participate, and of course that depended, distributor deals and other things always matter to film festivals, and premiere statuses still do matter on some level for sales. But films that were able to screen with Fantastic Fest as features, a lot of them did, and there were a number of technically world premieres. And with shorts, shorts have less concern about rights and where they screen and where they premiere. But we still had a really good turnout, and more people saw them. So if you're a shorts filmmaker, I'm going to especially plug for right now. If your film's accepted at a festival that's going to help you get the word out, like, get your film in that festival, even though you can't go. People will see it, and I think it's a good thing. And not just because I program shorts, like, get your film out there. It's actually, there's some upsides to this in some cases. There's a lot of downsides, but there are some upsides.
Yeah, and Chad, I also kind of want to follow up with you on what Jean said, because one thing that was a little difficult for us, me, Isaac, and Ximena, we all made our selections, but then when we told everyone, okay, well, the only way we can do it is, with our platforms, and we're not going to geo-block it to just Texas or El Paso, because a lot of our audience comes from out of town, and it's like, that'd be doing them a disservice. We want them to remember us so that when we can go in person, they come back to us. So we set our geo-block to just the United States, but I know that wasn't, a lot of films, especially the features, were like, no, we can't do that, so we're going to just withdraw. And that kind of sucks, because we did have some films where we were like, oh, this one would have been so great to have. But I'm curious if you kind of ran into any of those problems as well, Chad, with Hill Country or with Lone Star.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly did with Hill Country. And like I was saying, for the feature films, the majority of them did pull out. I mean, but again, we thought there was going to be a place for them to have their premieres or, their in-person screenings. So in terms of like Lone Star coming up, with our platform, we could, if a filmmaker needed a request of like, I can only screen this in text, we can geo-block to that specific film. We don't want to. We want to be able to provide the content to everybody, but we can make those exceptions. And I think the goal of our organization is just to be as transparent with the filmmakers as possible. And a lot of times we'll explain, like, I don't want to do anything that you're not comfortable with. And again, if you guys just absolutely are scared of this, then there's no hard feelings at all. And then when we talk about, hey, this is going to be the platform that we're using, they're very reputable, they're working with all these other film festivals, it definitely helps the filmmakers feel a little bit more at ease, and they're willing to, share their content with that third party. I mean, it doesn't even go through us. It's sure, it's the Lone Star Film Festival, but I mean, I don't have access to their movies. It's through Cine. So, I think folks are kind of warming up to the idea. And honestly, like, what's the alternative? I mean, shorts, by means, play as many festivals as possible. Features, I kind of get it, because I mean, especially if you got a world premiere you're sitting on, and you're like, man, I was going to world premiere at South by, I was going to have, an audience of press, and it was going to be exciting, and now I'm holding. Well, I mean, how long do you hold off till? When do you just say, oh, we got to get it out there, we got to get into the world? And that's the dilemma that the filmmaker is having to go through. And I feel for them. And I mean, I want to do everything to help them, but again, I can only offer what we're offering, and I hope they take it. If not, I just want them to be successful, right? I want them to find their home where they can have a great opportunity to get the exposure that they want from their feature film. I mean, these filmmakers put their heart and souls into these movies, and you just want to do it properly. You want them to have that proper screening. And if it's not with us, I hope it's with someone else. And, we're cheering for him. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of the mindset that I've been going with.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. In fact, I can actually share a story. A good friend of ours, Kevin Ford, had a documentary called The Pushback that was going to premiere at South by, and then it didn't. And then, and it was interesting because, his, and then there was another film that was also submitted to us called Ready or Not by David Modigliani, who did Running with Beto. Both of theirs dealt with, political issues. And to me, I feel terrible for telling them this, but when I was talking to them early on in April, because they were like, we don't know if we still want to participate with your festival because of the pandemic, and maybe we need to try to sell this movie because now we don't have South by. So to me, I told them, well, you better hurry because your film has an expiration date and it's November 3rd. So you got to figure something out. But then eventually both of them did, Ready or Not got on Fuse TV, and then Kevin Ford's Pushback just went out on video on demand on Amazon and on Apple and Google and everything like that. And that's the other thing we did notice too. There were a lot of films that were scheduled to appear in a lot of these festivals that just went straight to VOD. And we're okay with that. For us, it was like, well, you're still an official selection, so we'll just link people there, and we just tell people, hey, go watch that movie. We picked it, and it's still a good movie, so go watch it anytime now. But did you run into any of like those problems, Gene or Chad?
Where filmmakers didn't want to show.
Yeah, like they just wanted to withdraw, because that was the other thing too, is that I know some asked me like, maybe if you do a drive-in, we'll do it. And I was like, operationally, we can't do that here in El Paso. We're not like in Austin where they can just set that up. It's like a whole thing here. So for us, it wasn't going to be financially viable.
What's best for them, like both you and Chad have said, and if it's not, so it's always back to it has to be the right time for the film and the right time for the festival. And I saw sort of reading into one of the questions on the sidebar, like, can a film just go to YouTube? Well, it can, but the thing that festivals can offer, so they have a built-in community already. They don't have to start their marketing from scratch. So if you have a way to connect to marketing where you're not starting from scratch and you release your film on YouTube, great. Like, if that's the path for you, the thing that you get from a curated program with a reputation, right, with an audience, with already, the press and the marketing built in, you get all of that for your film. So again, with shorts or with niche films, this is especially important because you're not connected yet to a distributor. You're not connected yet to someone who can champion your film at a tier that can raise its profile. You do need these types of programming opportunities still to get you connected to audiences. And you made a movie, you want people to see it, right? So this is one of the ways that can happen. Is it the only way? No. But it is a good way. Again, if you know what type of festival you're applying to, which can be challenging, talk to people in the industry, talk to festival programmers, go to them if you can, when you can, right? Right now you can go to them. I mean, honestly, it's easier to attend more festivals right now.
Yeah. And so, that question came from Arturo. And Arturo, so just to kind of let you know, you can put your movie on YouTube or Vimeo, wherever you want, and put it online. But watching a movie in a movie theater is going to be a very different experience. So that's part of the reason too, is that why we encourage people to send their work to film festivals, because it's a different viewing experience for your film. But also too, just because it's on YouTube or Vimeo doesn't mean people in Austin, Texas have seen the movie, or in Fredericksburg, or in Dallas, or in Fort Worth, or here in El Paso. For us, it's like, oh, hey, that's a great movie. And then we find out it's on YouTube. Then we're like, oh, hey, we want to share this with everybody because we saw it at this festival and it was awesome and we loved it. So it's part of the strategy, eventually. And for us, premiere status isn't really an issue with us. If you've already been on YouTube or Vimeo, we're like, okay, that's fine. Is it a good movie? Story and sound, that's what we focus on. So just to let you know. But let me see here. I had one question from here. So OTT platforms. So yeah, like stuff, like Amazon, Netflix, and all that kind of stuff. Do you think this is going to be more implemented now with festivals? Do you think regarding the way filmmakers are able to get their work distributed? Because I know that is one thing that we as festivals all try to do, is we try to get the work seen. And then people talk about it, then it goes on to the next show and the next show. So I'm curious as to how these platforms, Chad, as you mentioned, we only want to do this one year and then go back to in person. But yeah, we're still evaluating too whether or not we're going to do a hybrid festival next year, if everyone will get the vaccine, hopefully. And okay, how do we check for that? Do we ask for immunization records when people walk in before they buy a badge? So I wanted to kind of put it to you there.
I mean, there is the model, I guess, where film festivals do become distribution sites. I think they would get gobbled up by the big boys. I don't think, Netflix or Amazon's going to allow that. But for the bigger festivals, sure. I mean, Sundance already kind of does that. South by is doing that. The hard part for a small film festival is that you can't compete with that. And if that's what the filmmakers want and you can't provide that, then you're going to lose them. The only thing I will say about filmmakers making that decision, whether to play festivals, even if in a virtual world, I always say, play them, play as many as you possibly can. You're building your audience, and that is going to be the audience that's going to go back. And when it's on Amazon, we'll rewatch it. We'll tell their friends about it. We had a film at Hill Country that we were really excited about. It was going to world premiere at South by. Of course, South by fell through. They pulled out, weren't even a part of, South by's program when they did that thing with, was it on Amazon?
Yeah.
And so they didn't play with us. And I haven't heard from that film since then. And I think it's such a shame that, they could have been playing these smaller festivals, building an audience. And then when they do eventually have their major release through their, streaming platforms, people will be talking about it. And it will have, that power behind it. Like this film was going to play South by. It played Hill Country. It went to 10 other festivals. I hate seeing a film just be shelved, and I guess that's the decision of the filmmaker. But I think some filmmakers are also getting some bad advice from distributors, because distributors.
I agree with that. Yeah, they're like stockbrokers, man. Yeah, they're like stockbrokers.
I mean, it's so frustrating when you have a film that you absolutely love, and a distributor, really tries to, muscle you and take you for a huge screening fee. And you're like, we're a small little film festival. We love this movie. We're going to be the champion of this film for, until it, wherever it goes. And they don't care. Distributors are hardcore.
Yeah. And that's actually Isaac, I wanted to kind of bring you up on this, and the Ximena too, because we had a feature film. I'm going to name it, but just to let you guys know, we had a great film called Dementor, which was awesome. But again, I tried to accommodate the distributor as much as I could, but in the end, they wanted, it can only screen one time, and it has to be at a certain time, and it has to be all geo-blocked to El Paso. Like, it can't be Texas or anything else. And we were like, dude, we can't do that. Like, is there any other way we can make this movie work? And they were like, nope, sorry. And it's like, oh, we just lost a movie just because we couldn't accommodate.
Shame, honestly.
Yeah. And because it was a really good movie. But again, I also feel that maybe narrative films have that advantage because they can always come back. It's a narrative film. It's not time dated. Like I feel like the hardest hit genre is probably documentary, because usually it's things that are relevant or things that are happening. So and just kind of touching up on that, because Isaac and Ximena, since you guys were on the program committee with me, one thing, and then Gene and Chad, just to let you guys know. So like one thing we notice with our programming is that 4-to-1, we get 4 times as many narrative shorts than we do documentaries. In fact, I always struggle to find documentaries. I try my best to go to other festivals or see their program and ask, do you have documentaries? Because we're not really getting any. Or like this year, I can tell you that we got maybe about 20 documentaries and we programmed 11 of them. But narratives, God, we have like mountains of narrative short films. How do you find that right balance? Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
That's a question to Eugene. Yeah, how do you? Because you mentioned it too. Like, how do you find that balance?
I will say it's really hard for Fantastic Fest because it's a genre film festival, so we tend to be very heavy on narrative and experimental in both narrative and shorts. For Cine somebody, because we have the opposite problem, because we serve marginalized communities who are working really hard to get their stories told. Right. And we serve communities that want to hear those stories. So we actually tend to have a lot more documentaries and we have to be very choosy on both sides. But we have a lot of documentaries to choose from. And then, I will say, and I know this is common, we'll be like, we don't have any films, from this region, and we call our programming friends and we're like, have you seen anything that you would recommend? Or we have had a hard time finding this type of theme and we know it's important to our communities. Has anything come out on that? And because we're all watching so many movies, but we can't watch all of them. So we just start making phone calls. But, in kind of I am going to say kind of mainstream festivals, right, that are kind of pulling art cinema from everywhere. It can be harder to find documentaries that aren't, the made for TV style, right, that are like a film festival documentary. Those are challenging. But for us, we're like, hey, we've got tons of them. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah, and Chad, do you run into that problem too with either
without
festival?
a doubt. If you don't have it, you got to go hunting and you got to go looking for that content that you're missing. And then some years those categories just narrow. Like certain years you might have, a great amount of documentaries that you're like, okay, this is perfect. And then other years, well, it's just going to be a little less because we don't have that ability to find all that content. You just, in programming, you just want to have diversity. You want to be able to provide something for everyone. And I feel like if you can do that every year consistently, the numbers are going to work. I mean, it'll eventually you'll have a track record of like, LGBTQ filmmakers are sending your movies their way because you've got that category for them. It's just having that history, and it just takes a while, I think. I mean, when people start looking at the El Paso Film Festival and they see the content that you guys are programming, they're going to get it. They're going to like, oh, I know, I can get a documentary in here. I can get my Texas film in here. I really want to be able to play with a festival that has that diversity.
Yeah, and I'm glad you touched on that because I want to conclude this panel with Ximena and Isaac. So tell me about your experience. I know I haven't really given you that platform yet. Give me your feedback. How did you feel going through all of these films? And like you said, we were always talking, rating, and all this kind of stuff. But diversity wise, how did you guys feel being programmers for this festival?
Isaac, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I had a great time as an avid watcher of films, and really kind of the word I'm looking for would be just like a champion of independent films. It's a great pleasure. You get so many. I mean, we have films from all over the country. That's usually what I like to tell people when they ask me what I've done for the festival. I'm like, I've seen films from countries I didn't, we just don't think they're making films. You just, for whatever reason, it escapes your blind view or whatever. But it's incredible. I mean, just a film from another country is just a view into a whole other world alone. But everything else, I mean, this festival got so many various submissions. So it was just a pleasure. I mean, I would see the number stacking of all the films we had to watch, and it never intimidated me or made me feel like, oh God, I have to. No, I loved the challenge of it, of really viewing it critically and saying like, does this fit what I think would work? Would this fit something we perhaps haven't looked at yet? And compiling it all together in the end when we would discuss what would make it better. That was kind of the best part to me, was defending what I felt was right. You have to stick up for some of the little guys, and likewise hearing an opinion that I might have had that was not as well informed. That's the best part of it, is just the communication. And luckily online was just as good as if we were in person.
Yeah, I think in terms of the experience, like, think of it as the funnest job ever. You get to talk about films that you're watching with other people that appreciate the art form. So that's always, I mean, just in that is like 10 out of 10 experience. There were times where the submissions kept growing and growing and growing. The deadline for us to like meet up and discuss them was coming up. So it was like, all right, we're binging all these movies and we're watching them, and we're, trying to give as much honest commentary on what we see. And I think, at least in terms of like trying to find voices that maybe aren't showcased as often, whether it's women filmmakers or LGBT filmmakers, like you said, Chad, it's something that I think, in a way, which we also talked about earlier, being moved completely virtual kind of made it more accessible. There were a lot of films that got submitted that maybe weren't thinking of submitting prior because they didn't think that the El Paso Film Festival was something that was as accessible as it could have been if it would have been virtual. And I think that's also something that did help us a lot. Not that we are limited to a specific genre or criteria. We accept anyone and everyone. The pandemic actually helped us in that way. I feel like there was a lot more accessibility for things that you wouldn't see. And I think that was something that I really appreciated. And like Isaac, I also am a fan of eclectic, but my biggest love is foreign films. And we had so many great ones come into the El Paso Film Festival. And it was something that I wouldn't have expected had I known, or had I not known the process of film programming. So I think that was very, very exciting.
Oh yes, and of course, Wendy, I did get your question here. So Wendy is asking, if we want to be part of a committee to be screeners for festivals, how do we do that? I always just say, just send an email. You never know. And then also follow the programmers on social media. Sometimes they put calls out, to get people to screen films. And sometimes you may have to go through a process and answer questions and that kind of stuff if you have any experience doing it. But again, in these times, everyone is an email or a phone call away. We are desperate for human interaction, so don't worry.
Brings about the best out of us.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I want to thank you guys, for joining us today. Chad, thank you for your time. Gene, always a pleasure seeing you. And Isaac and Ximena, I really hope you guys can experience the festival next year in person. But I think you guys did a really, really solid job in helping me program these films. I could not have done it without you. And the festival thanks you. The filmmakers thank you. So we all thank you. And to all the programmers out there, we all know the job you do, and we love you. And filmmakers, again, programmers are just an email away at most. Sir, some might not answer, but hey, just do a follow-up. You never know. We always try to answer everyone's questions as much as we can because we want to be transparent, as Chad mentioned. We want to be transparent with filmmakers to make sure that we get their films screened at the right festivals and in front of the right audiences. So thank you, panel. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Of
Thanks,
course.
guys.
Always a pleasure.
All right, guys, that concludes the Film Festival Strategy Panel. Tomorrow, we will have the Latino Community Film panel with Femme Frontera. Angie Reza Torres will be the host. And we have several women filmmakers who have made some great films. Some here also at the El Paso Film Festival, and they're also alumni of the festival. So we invite you guys to register for that panel. And of course, we'll have more things to come later this week. Remember, our Roku, Apple, and Fire TV apps are live now. You can now stream the films for free. So please download them, enjoy, stay safe, stay healthy. We love you guys. Take care.